Welcome back to True North Sports Talk Podcast. We are looking at all things Canadian sports as always, and it's Peter Barclay here, the way it always is. As usual, to my left, we have the Blue Jays on the screen there. They are in the bottom of the second, down 3-1. Unfortunately, the only hit given up in the game today was a 3-run homer for the opposing team. And yeah, so given they're right there playing right now, we need to talk about said Toronto Blue Jays today, because right now, Skydome's looking a little bit less like a baseball stadium, if you will, and looks a little bit more like a daily triage unit. We are barely 2 weeks into the 2026 season, and the Blue Jays at the start of play today are sitting at 4-7. Probably going to change that by the time it airs. They've been swept by the Chicago White Sox, a team that lost over 100 games last year, and then getting absolutely embarrassed by the Los Angeles Dodgers in 2 out of the 3 games. They have 10 players so far on the injured list, and 1 or 2 of those were from before the season, but these aren't minor tweaks. These aren't players that you can say, okay, you know what, those weren't very, very hugely important cogs in the wheel of our team. So we're talking about season-ending surgeries, torn ligaments, fractured bones, and a 41-year-old pitcher dealing with issues as well. And there's a lot to talk about when it comes to this team. For a team that prided itself on durability last year, for the most part, I mean, yeah, they dealt with some injuries, but nothing like this. They went to Game 7 of the World Series, and that wasn't very long ago. But this is a pretty alarming trend that we're seeing from this team right now. Is it the fact that most of these guys, their bodies aren't used to going that deep? But some of them came from teams that did go this deep. So the context really does matter. That's why we're doing this episode here today. That's why we're talking about your Toronto Blue Jays. We're going to cover all the injuries. We're going to talk about realistic timelines for each of these players. We're going to talk about who could come from the minor league system to fill the gaps. We're going to talk about some players from outside the organization that may be brought in to fill some gaps. And we're going to just take a long, hard, honest look at some players that, or not players, but just how this team is playing, what they can do on the field to get back to where they were. So, it's an action-packed, big episode for you today. There's a lot to cover, so please guys, stick around to the end. You're not going to want to miss a minute of this. Hopefully we'll get you all caught up to speed as to where they are, just a couple of weeks into the season. And we're going to start with that list that's caused them to run out of ink. The injured list. So what happened? And we're going to look at some timelines. We're going to start at the top, work our way down, and just go from there. So, barring something happening today, hopefully there isn't more to add to this by the time we air it. But we're going to start with the rotation, because that is probably the most damaged area of this team. The Blue Jays entered this season with the strongest pitching situation in the entire major leagues. You had 7, maybe 8 guys who were legitimate starting pitchers. Our most recent acquisition in the offseason of Dylan Cease, you had Kevin Gausman. Jose Berríos looked dynamite early in spring. They caught a fracture in his forearm before the World Baseball Classic. You have Shane Bieber that's dealing with perhaps a similar injury to what Scherzer's dealing with, just not as bad, or just worse, I would say. Trey Savage has dealt with shoulder issues. In game 1, which was game 4 of the season, I believe, which is kind of when all of this stuff started snowballing south, you had Cody Ponce, who tore his ACL, and they just went down 4-1 as another home run was given up. So you had Cody Ponce and Max Scherzer, and at one point they thought maybe even Bowden Francis. So you had 8 guys that in theory, and Eric Lauer, let's not forget him. So you had 8-9 guys that could legit be starters for your team. On paper, that was abundance. But we don't play games on paper. So immediately, everything fell apart almost. They got through the first series unscathed. They swept that series. And again, starting with Cody Ponce, everything just started snowballing. And so yeah, Bowden Francis, a name we just mentioned, his season is over. So before the season even began, Francis, who 2 years ago was a breakout star that we expected a lot from, struggled last year because of injury. He had Tommy John on February 18th. He's going to miss this entire season and isn't expected back until, I'll be optimistic and say June next year. That's a significant blow. Francis was good in the back end of the rotation. He could be good in the back end of the bullpen, which that breakout year is where he started. And when you're already looking at Shane Bieber's health, you're looking at Max Scherzer's age and health, and you lost an arm before opening day, that's not a good sign. Then you have Trey Savage. He had a right shoulder impingement. He's on his 30 days right now. So he'll be back sooner than later. We're hoping at least one more start in the minors. So about 15 days from now. And I think we'll get to that in a bit here with him. But from a narrative standpoint, this one really hurt. Savage was the phenom, the story, the overwhelming favorite almost of the postseason last year. He came not out of nowhere, but he had a rocket ship attached to his back last year. He made his debut during the September call-up period and was just lights out in the playoffs. He was supposed to be the number 3 starter heading into this year by some accounts, not by me. I said he should start at AAA. I said they should have brought back Bassett and Scherzer right off the bat from last year. And even if you bring in Cody Ponce with Bassett and Scherzer, then you could still have him around, and then you're looking pretty good to keep you Savage at AAA. That's what I've been saying all winter long. Now again, some thought he would be the number 3 starter, maybe number 4 or 5, depending on how you like to set up your rotations. I don't know how anyone would think number 2 by mid-season, because you have Gausman and Cease at the top of your rotation, so that doesn't make sense. Berríos, Bieber's a former Cy Young winner. I would have said that Savage was fighting for the number 5 spot if everyone remained healthy. So instead, he's been on a rehab assignment, building back up. And the latest from Keegan Matheson at MLB.com said that Savage threw a rehab start this past week, and another one, maybe two, before he gets brought back up to the big league club. So end of April, maybe beginning of May, and that would be significant. It would also, for the tinfoil hats, give him another year of service time before he hits the open market if they leave him down there for a certain period of time. You have to imagine that, being a first-year player, they could actually option him to AAA because he would have options left on his contract. But they might have to bring him up for a day or something just based on the 30-day rule. So we'll see. He should be back sooner than later, though. And the way this rotation's looking right now, they actually do need him right now. You have Shane Bieber, who had right elbow inflammation. He actually did the team a favor in terms of his contract being a $16 million player option that is very team friendly, considering the qualifying offer, that's what I'm looking for, was about $22 to $23 million this year. So the fact that he came back for 16, that's actually pretty big. And he didn't want to test free agency. Apparently near the end of last year, and you got to remember, he was coming off of Tommy John as well, that he had some forearm fatigue last year that he tried to pitch through. So that's obviously carried over. Right now, he's building back up. He threw off a mound for just the 3rd time this past Saturday. The team is being cautiously optimistic about a mid to late May return. And so we got maybe another month or so before we see him. Now, we can be cautious with this. The team's got to figure out a way to tread water, but we need him at his best. So we don't want to rush him back, even though there's other injuries piling up. But that's a month, maybe a month and a half away at minimum. Then we mentioned Jose Berríos, who looked dynamite, but then he ended up getting some work done for insurance purposes to pitch in the World Baseball Classic and found a right elbow, that's his pitching arm, stress fracture. So that put him on the 60-day DL. So we're looking at July, August at the earliest. This one's very concerning, considering up till last year, this is a guy who's never been on the designated or the injured list. La Maquina, the guy who never gets hurt, never misses a start, all of a sudden, he's really hurt. So he's on the 60-day. As we mentioned, he's been throwing live bullpen sessions. That's a positive sign. ESPN in the States is reporting that he's expected to begin a rehab assignment next week. That's putting him, June, July, but earliest June. And here's the wrinkle, though. Berríos has a player opt-out after this season. A significant injury could complicate the math around his future with this club. how he feels about his health going into that decision really matters. This is a rough third inning for the Jays here. They're down 5-1 now. Still no outs with the bases loaded. Yuck. This is another tough series. Alright, so that's the 4-1-1 on Jose Berríos. Let's shift over to Cody Ponce. He's on the 60-day DL. He's in the first year of a 3-year, $30 million contract. And he is effectively out for the season. He is on the 60-day, but he has an ACL sprain. He's going for surgery on the ACL. This one is really painful because he looked really good in that first start up till that fateful run to first base. He showed up healthy. He pitched his first major league start in years, and that was on April 1st against Colorado. And again, this really seemed to be when everything just started to snowball. In the third inning, he was chasing a grounder, planted awkwardly, and blew out his knee. His surgery is scheduled for, let me see a calendar here. Let's click on that. Wednesday this week, so the day we're airing this. He should be having his ACL surgery. He's expected to miss 6 months, which basically means his season is over. The timing could not have been more worse. Top of the third, 6-1, and John Schneider's coming to get his pitcher. That's not a good thing. So the timing could not have been worse, and this is a player who is trying to prove his worth in his contract. At the time of his injury, he was proving it, but this is a very major setback. Now we have Max Scherzer, who has tendonitis. They have not placed him on the injured list. He is the pitcher who was taken out just now by John Schneider. And they showed it on the broadcast. Right about here. I don't know if you can see that. He's got this massive bruise from the tendonitis. This is one that was really concerning because that would put us 3 pitchers down, being as Eric Lauer, who toughed it out yesterday, was recovering from the flu. This is a tough one. This is an older guy. He's looking to manage his tendonitis at this point. On April 7th, in the World Series rematch against the Dodgers, Scherzer was yanked after just 2 innings due to this particular injury. He had only thrown 36 pitches. Today just did not go well for him. The crowd held its breath. But yeah, he's going to manage it, tough it out. They don't expect him to go on the injured list, but if he gets starts like today where he gave up 6 runs in less than 3 innings, you got to figure that he's got something going on with his arm. Joe Manta plays into the game now. He says he is fairly to quite confident. And again, that start did happen, but that was a quote from John Schneider about Max Scherzer. And so yeah, they got to keep him somewhat healthy. And again, they're looking forward to the playoffs. Why they have him on this team? He's on a 1-year deal. He's got $3 million coming plus incentives, so he's got to be there. He's got to pitch. But again, at 41 years old, his body does have limits. Ricky Tiedemann started out in AAA. He's got left elbow soreness, is on the Buffalo Bison's 7-day injured list. And this is one of the toughest stories we've had around the team in years. And it reminds me of like a Dustin McGowan from back in the days. All the tools are there. All the ability is there. This guy just can't stay healthy. In the last 3 years, he went from former top prospect who had electric stuff, threw the ball harder than Trey Savage, had Tommy John in 2024, missed all of last year, came back this spring, was shut down in February with elbow soreness. His MRI came back clean. There's no structural damage, but he was assigned to Buffalo's injured list to start the season. And the Jays are working to find some sort of preventative measures for him. As of the last update, he's scheduled to begin throwing. There's still hope for a possible return this year, but this is the definition of a week-to-week issue. Right now, nobody's really holding their breath, because this is just, who knows what's going to happen. This game beside me right now is becoming a write-off, and yeah, it's going to be a tough one. So, coming off the mound now, you have Alejandro Kirk. He left the game the other day with a thumb fracture. If you watched that game, it was instant that he knew that there was a real big issue there. Took a foul ball off the thumb of his glove. And this just was a tough situation all the way around. He had surgery on April 7th. They put a screw in the thumb, and he is expected to be out at least 6 weeks. That puts his return around late May. And Kirk is one of the heart and soul guys, especially from a defensive perspective, for this team. He's the guy that keeps the running game in order. He calls a good game behind the plate. He frames pitches well, even with the ABS. His blocking ability that's come so far in the last year and a half, and his relationship with the pitching staff. None of that stuff is possible to be replicated. Nothing against Tyler Heineman. He's kind of the guy right now, along with Brendan Valenzuela. And these guys are doing the best they can. They're working really hard at it. They're just not Alejandro Kirk. As always, the only thing that Alejandro can't do well is run. He's a smart base runner, don't get me wrong. He's just not fleet of foot. So while Heineman's a solid backup, Valenzuela's decent right now. It's tough right now. So the team already has allowed the second most stolen bases in the early going. That running game just seems to be getting worse. Addison Barger, this was another tough one to watch. He was running out a ground ball to first. His left ankle just came down awkwardly at the base. And they said movement this way and this way was an issue. Now they're calling it a left ankle sprain. That happened on April 6th. So yeah, he hurt both his ankles really. But he tried to stay in the game. He was eventually removed. The latest update from John Schneider says that Barger will be shut down through at least Monday, which is an off day, or was an off day, shall we say. And then they're going to reassess. He's been replaced on the roster by Tyler Fitzgerald, a recent acquisition from the San Francisco Giant. He's been called up from AAA. And Barger had gotten off to a brutal start offensively, so it didn't really matter a whole lot. He had just one hit in 19 at-bats, so the hope is that when he does come back fresh and healthy, that he will come back to the guy they had last year. Anthony Santander, this is probably the biggest sore spot for Blue Jays fans. They gave him a boatload of money. Quite frankly, I hated this signing right from the very beginning. They played better without him last year than they did when he was on the field. He had left shoulder labral surgery that perhaps should have been done a lot sooner. He has only played about 50 games in the 2 years. They're saying August, maybe September for his return. I think he can stay at AAA when he does come back, because I'm sorry, Anthony, but they play better without you. So if he does return this year, for him personally, that will be a pretty big success. But again, a second lost year from Anthony Santander. Jimmy Garcia. Boy, this one hurts just because he is such a likable guy. He came back. Everyone was excited based on his first go around. He had surgery in 2025, but he is getting close to having rehab games. He's throwing bullpen sessions in Dunedin. He was expected to be a key late inning guy this year. His return timeline is late April. So there is good news there. Hopefully it feels like it's coming sooner than later. And we'll see him back real soon. The big news out of yesterday's game, so meaning Saturday, was George Springer. He hit a foul ball off his left foot, fractured his big toe. Yikes, that's really sucky. He was playing well. Wouldn't say he was playing great. And it's just yikes. He got put on the injured list today, as you could imagine. Hopefully it's just about 6 weeks and we'll see him back the way it usually takes. Eloy Jimenez has been recalled from AAA. In looking at all the information, I thought maybe Jonathan Klass would have made sense, just because he's already on the 40-man. And so we'll see. So you got your Savage potentially weeks away. You got Bieber mid to late May. Berríos possibly June. Kirk mid to late May. Santander September probably at best. Ponce done for the year. Francis done for the year. Tiemann, who the heck knows. Scherzer managing his issue. Springer another, let's say, end of June. This is pretty unprecedented for a team this early in the season. Sports Illustrated called them the unluckiest team in all of baseball right now. That's pretty hard to argue about, just the way things are going. So, who can they bring up? Where's the pivot? Their farm system is not that deep. There are some names that are possibly knocking on the door that could provide legitimate help. Trey Savage, we know, we just talked about him, but he is pretty close right now, so that is a guy technically in the minors who can help out, hopefully sooner than later. His last outing didn't go the way you'd want it to, but that's how things go when you're in rehab. You're just trying to see how he recovers, how his pitches are moving, what he looks like on the mound. The results don't necessarily matter a whole lot. So they need him to come in and fill potentially a spot in the rotation. You got Patrick Corbin, who tried his best the other day. You got Eric Lauer doing his best, even though he's still not feeling that well. And you got a slightly injured Max Scherzer. So a healthy body would do wonders. He's the number 1 ranked prospect in the organization, talking about Savage. MLB Pipeline has him at number 10 overall in the entire league. His playoff performance last year showed he is built for the moment. And when he comes back, he pretty much, you would figure, slots into the rotation. Sliding Corbin or Lauer to the bullpen will hopefully strengthen that side of things. And this is sort of part of the cavalry that the Jays have been trying the best they can to tread water to get back. Next, you have Eloy Jimenez, who was called up today to replace George Springer. He's 29. He signed August of 2025. August 2025. He's been tearing it up at AAA. 257, 372, 744 with a homer and 5 RBIs in 11 games. That's so-so. He's a former White Sox and Orioles player. 95 home runs, so he's got some pop in the bat, hopefully to replace some that Springer had. He's been healthy, locked in at Buffalo. Healthy is the number one point there. And he is hopefully going to pay off going forward, at least until we can get Springer back. Then we mentioned Jonathan Klass, who I thought might be the guy they call up. He's at AAA right now. He's had ups and downs with the big league club last season. He wasn't playing well enough to stick around. He's had a hot start at Buffalo. He's what Greg Zahn might have called a 4A player. Recording 3 runs, a homer, and 5 RBIs, 2 stolen bases in 6 games. They could use some of that running on the big club right now. His calling card has always been his speed, his defense, and with Santander gone, Springer down, the Jays really could use an option off the bench with that kind of speed. He's, as we mentioned, already on the 40-man roster, and so we could really use that up at the big league level. So he could be the next name if a need arises. You have RJ Schreck. He's an outfielder at AAA right now. They got him from Seattle at the 2024 deadline for Justin Turner. He's been quietly developing into one of the better prospects they have right now, although his slash line isn't real great. 242, 392, 435. He had 9 home runs with AAA. And yeah, he's got a good eye at the plate though. He's got a 16% walk rate. His strikeout rate, while present, is manageable. He's listed as the number 8 prospect in the organization by Blue Jays Nation. And that was before the season. So, another mishap. Fly ball, 3rd out with 2 guys on base. Geez, with hitters in position this year, that's a big issue for this team. But yeah, so we could see Shrek very soon. Yohendrick Pinago. He's another outfielder. He's always been talked about alongside Shrek. They've been competing, racing, however you want to say. He's a Venezuelan outfielder, 11th in the organization, and he has a 928 OPS across 47 games in AA before getting to Buffalo. And he's got on-base skills, as you can see. He walks a ton. He's only 23 years old. And that bat is only going to get better. He's not quite to the level that Shrek is at, but he's pretty close. And if you really need him, he could be a guy. A guy on the roster right now because they need a backup catcher. Brandon Valenzuela, he was the catcher at AAA. He's been with the team for a week or so now. He's got his first big league hit, his first big league home run. He has been okay behind the plate. He has done fairly well. All things considered, he is actually catching today so far. And one of the primary options. They're just kind of platooning the two guys right now. They're both switch hitters, which actually works in both of their favors. Because it doesn't really matter who you throw them out there against. They can hit either way. He came from San Diego last year at the deadline. He was always kind of the plan for this kind of scenario. He's already on the 40-man, which really helped his call up. Because they didn't have to send anyone down, designate anyone for assignment, none of that stuff. They feel a lot better with him being available as an emergency option rather than having to use some sort of position player Varsho was a catcher at one point. I heard Ernie Clement was the emergency option last year. And that's not really the kind of thing that you want for your big league club. So, CJ Van Eck is a right-handed pitcher with AAA right now. He was the second round pick in 2020, so he's been developing since. He's been injured quite a lot throughout his career. He opened with a strong debut for the Bisons, 1 earned run, 5 strikeouts in 4 innings. He's got a good curveball with a 67% whiff rate. That's pretty good. He's not like a star, but he could be serviceable even as an opener if the need really does arise. That's one emergency option. You're gonna probably look outside the organization. They probably should be right now to see what they can do. Grant Rogers is a right-handed pitcher at AAA Buffalo. He has a 3.47 ERA, 115 strikeouts in 28 starts last year. That's actually pretty good stuff. If he's durable, I'd be looking at him even before Van Eck. They say he's a bit of a long shot for a big league call-up, but if they need a spot start, an opener, something like that, and if he's pitching any way whatsoever, I'd be looking at him if I was them. Ricky Tiedemann could be, depending on where he gets to with his arm this year. Like a Yesavage, he's day to day. You never know when he could be available. Maybe they need him to step in as well. There's no structural damage, and he could give them a boost if they need to. Alright, so who is out there? What is out there outside the organization they might get? Now, we've talked about this. They have guys who, as they get healthy, are going to come back and do well. So, you got Vladdy, you got Gausman, you got Cease. You got a whole bunch of guys that are there. You got Clement, which I'm not surprised he let off today with a single. I thought he would make a great leadoff guy. Nathan Lucas did it at times last year, depending. So you got guys who can lead off in Springer's absence. And the question becomes, who externally could they get? They got a Patrick Corbin already. 1-year deal, $1 million. He can be a stopgap. He pitched the other day. He didn't look horrible. Not that he looked great. Right now, the Blue Jays just need him to tread water for them. If he could pull off what Lauer did last year, if Lauer could get back to that, okay, who else you got out there? You got Freddy Peralta. That's a name. He was fairly serviceable last year. MLB.com had him as their dream target even back in November. Peralta is under contract with Milwaukee, but he's got a 1-year deal. If the Brewers fall out of contention, maybe they'd be willing to let him go. What would you have to give up from your system? Or maybe it's a player to be named or a bag of balls. Who knows? He's got a 28.9 strikeout rate over his last 3 seasons. That's pretty good. He's got a walk rate that is pretty solid. He's just in his year 30 season. He looks a lot like a Dylan Cease, so that could be very useful to the team. If they can get him without giving up too much, that would give them an immediate boost. They could move on from him if they needed to by the trade deadline. If a Bieber comes back, a Berríos comes back, and they're looking really strong. Or they just hold on to those guys as depth, showing already this year that they need that depth almost more than anyone. And this is a conversation that's already starting. They're not waiting for the trade deadline on this. The Blue Jays could be active given the injuries. And so yeah, Jimmy Garcia coming back could help. But he's not really a starter, but he could help. On the position player side, let's see. You don't really need a whole lot, I don't think. I think they can tread water. Michael Conforto is a name that's out there. He's a veteran outfield bat. He could provide balance to the lineup. He's had a solid year last year and this year in San Francisco. And yeah, he's a veteran guy. He could come in. He doesn't kill you defensively. He's not flashy, but he's functional. And that's all you really need at this point. You just got to tread water till your guys come back. Longer term, bigger picture, the Jays are going to need to address the rotation depth. The longer guys are on the injured list, you do have to worry about Shane Bieber and Kevin Gausman leaving in the offseason. Berríos has an opt-out, so Lauer's a free agent. You really got to be looking long-term if you're looking at pitchers. You got to see where Gausman's mind is at. Maybe he does want to come back. Maybe Bieber wants to come back if they get another deep run. Maybe Berríos doesn't opt out if he's a big part of a big run. So who knows? You maybe have 4 starters leaving. You maybe can get them all back. Who knows? So Gausman has been the most consistent throughout his time here, the last 5 years. If they want to keep the core of this rotation together, getting him signed before the end of the year would be great to keep him from hitting free agency. They should be on his agent's phone every day between now and the rest of the year. He's been the ace of this staff. He got the opening day start finally this year. We should mention Kirk, Valenzuela now in the picture. So for the short term, they're good. Hopefully Kirk's timeline isn't extended. If Valenzuela hits some rookie struggles, then they might be looking to bring in a guy just for a few weeks. But we shall wait and see. So now we're to the part of the show where we are going to talk about what can this team do. They've really had a tough go of it on the field so far this season. We haven't seen the Blue Jays of last year. Defensively, there's a lot left to be desired. Some of the old habits, like swinging outside the zone, you have ABS. You don't need to swing at borderline off the plate pitches that maybe once would get called strikes when you can challenge it. You just have to be wise about when you do challenge and not go crazy early in the game on pitches that are potentially strikes. But you shouldn't be expanding your zone at all, because you don't have to anymore. You just have to be right when you challenge. So I think the Jays need to tighten up where they're swinging at baseballs. I mentioned it earlier, looking at the fact that they had runners at first and second. They've had the bases loaded. And there's been multiple times in the first 16 games where they've had bases loaded, nobody out, and 0 runs scored. That's a habit from 2 years ago that we thought they had gotten over that after last season. But this year, it's showing itself again. Their swing discipline at the plate. This has been a major problem. Popkins was getting all his flowers last year, and those flowers look like they've wilted this year. So he needs to figure out what's going on with this team. The guys on the field, between the ears, have to figure that out as well as to the selection of pitches that they are swinging at. On the fielding side of things, we've been pretty sympathetic towards this Blue Jays team in the first few segments based on the injury situation. But in this segment, as you can already tell, we're not going to do that. We're going to be real here. Not everything has been injury related. A lot of the fielding issues are mental. It's mental lapses in plays that we are used to seeing them make these plays time in and time out, over and over and over again. And so this is the thing, is that there's a lot of things going on in this field that need to change. Now, we've talked about it a little bit already. Their plate discipline, chasing out of the zone. This is really something that is very easy to fix. They just have to make better decisions at the plate. I know hitting's hard. I've done it many times. But the swing selection we're seeing early in the season is alarming. Their out-of-zone swing rate has climbed from 33.2 in the second half of last year to 36.5 this year. Now you can say, hey, that's only a 3% difference. But you can see the difference 3% makes. That's a huge difference in what we're seeing this year. All the regular hitters in the lineup have seen their chase rate go up. We don't want that. If we could get it down to 30% instead of being 36%, that's kind of what we need to see happen. But when you're swinging at pitchers' pitches, it doesn't matter how hard you're swinging. And we've seen the results. Against the White Sox, they were 2 for 22 with runners in scoring position. I mentioned that. Against the Rockies, they were 4 for 24. These are teams that finished at the very, very bottom of the league last year. And you're swinging at ridiculous pitches that you shouldn't be swinging at against those guys. Come on, you should be teeing off on them. Last year, against the Rockies, you were setting records against their pitching because you were being patient at the plate and hitting your pitch instead of swinging at their pitch. So there's a lot to be desired there. On April 7th against the Dodgers, the Jays had the bases loaded in the 7th inning. Again, nobody out. Okamoto, Ernie Clement, David Schneider had all gotten on base. Jimenez flies out. Jimenez, why are you not bunting? Valenzuela strikes out. Again, why are you not bunting? And then Springer flies out to right. So if we get some runs there from a bunt or two, and maybe even a long fly ball from one of those first two guys, Jimenez's fly out should have been to right, not left, to score the run. How can you have nobody out with the bases loaded and not score? This is a major problem. That inning was more or less a microcosm of how the early season has gone. There's just no patience at the plate. There's no two-strike approach. The guy who was famous for that plays for the Mets now. Would have been nice to have him around early in the season, especially the way he's picked it up lately, even though he's booed off the field earlier. But this was a team last year that completely overhauled their offensive identity in the second half under David Popkins, as we already mentioned. They were swinging harder on the pitches in the zone, and that worked. Where'd that go? They have the Traject pitching machine. You can't really have any excuse at this point. So what's happening now is just they're swinging hard, but out of the zone. Why are we doing that? Been saying that all season long. You've got to combine that aggression with discipline. You have to be aggressive in the zone, not out of the zone. So that aggression, without that discipline, just isn't working. Pitching coordination and depth management. We touched on this a little bit with Tyler Heineman as the backup. You got Valenzuela up there right now. Why has Heineman pitched in 2 games? Why did he have a better ERA than Brandon Little? Why were we running that guy out there? I was saying it so often, it felt like a broken record. Then I heard other people start saying it like a broken record until finally they decide to get this guy off the roster. Their bullpen, while not great, has been way better without him. Since he's been off the roster, Tyler Heineman has not pitched. Tells you something. So this bullpen, already because of all the injuries, has been gassed really early in the season. They've been called on early, they've been called on often, like this game we're watching beside me right now. It's just not a good look on this team. And this happened last year too, is we talked about the fact that, especially early in the season, up till about the trade deadline when they got Varlin and Sir Anthony Dominguez, and I think there was one other guy they picked up, but they overworked their bullpen like crazy early on in the season. So part of it's injury driven, we understand that, but they need to just figure this out. They need to go out and get starters for the time being, even if it's just short-term stuff and they designate them later. But they need solid starters coming in. Hopefully this Patrick Corbin arrival helps a little bit. But they got to find a way to stretch the healthy starters deeper into the game. Gausman can't come out in the 5th inning when the team needs length. Cease can't be babied through 5 innings the way they've been doing. These guys need to rise to the moment, and we know Gausman would if you let him. Let's see if Cease will, if you let him. So, the stolen base problem. We mentioned this in talking about Jonathan Klass. They don't steal enough bases. They don't catch enough base runners stealing. And that's the thing about Kirk's injury. The Blue Jays have already allowed the 2nd most stolen bases in all of baseball this year. We've mentioned that. The running game is being attacked because opponents know that Kirk's not there to throw them out. Heineman is okay, but he's not really the deterrent that Alejandro Kirk is. Valenzuela has yet to be proven, but it'd be nice if he could get back there and start throwing some guys out and just put the running game in check a little bit. So until Kirk comes back, teams are going to continue running. Some of it's on the pitchers. They need to vary their times, be a little quicker to the plate, recognize when guys are going to steal, and deal with that. Quick pitches, varied delivery times, like we said. And the coaching staff needs to be on them about it. Their defensive focus and lapses. The Blue Jays have elite defenders. You got Varsho, you got Jimenez, who's playing out of position because they wouldn't even talk to Bichette. Again, runners in position this inning, no scores. And you could say that Jimenez is a massive upgrade over Bo Bichette, but is he? He's had some moments this year. You've had Clement make a couple of uncharacteristic oopses. You've had Barger, who hasn't quite been what he was last year. And yeah, things just aren't what you would hope. So Kazuma Okamoto at third, he's been learning on the fly, but he's played fairly well so far. Heineman made 2 really large mistakes coming into that game that Alejandro Kirk got hurt in. Vladdy's made some uncharacteristic fielding oopses, like he threw a ball to second base the other night, which is usually money every single time. He pulled Jimenez off the base, so they didn't even get an out there. He's missed a couple of balls that came his way that we're not used to seeing him miss. And there's just been mental lapses all the way around, thinking about that play with Cody Ponce. So the errors in critical moments have to be cleaned up, but that's on the players. The coaches can talk till they're blue in the face, but the players got to execute what the coaches are talking about. So it's the kind of stuff that makes you look up from the box score and just be like, what's going on with these guys? Are they too distracted? Are they not locked in? Is there something happening that we're not aware of? Varsho's been a concern. He's one of the best defensive outfielders in baseball when he's healthy and dialed in. But his timing at the plate seemed great in the off-season, but it doesn't seem so great right now. He's been a little sluggish offensively, and the teams need him to get back to where he's been. They're clutch hitting. Full stop. What can we say about that? I've seen it 3 times in this game already, where they've had runners in position and just can't get a hit. They have the 3rd worst batting average with runners in scoring position in all of baseball so far this season with .213. I actually thought that was going to be the mid-100s. Their slugging percentage in those situations is the worst in baseball. Their WRC plus with runners in scoring position is the 4th lowest. And this is a team that had gone to Game 7 last year, so they are professional hitters. They're just not playing like it right now. Again, there are some injuries. Losing Kirk, losing Bichette, losing Barger. Springer, he was in a cold funk a little bit. Guerrero needs to be better, but he needs protection at the plate too. So this is just not a team that's functioning properly right now. We need the bat speed to up. We need the hits to change. There's just so much more that we need from this team. So to be fair, this team around this time last year, maybe a bit further on, was 16-20. They did end up in the World Series. So they know what that adversity is. They've managed injuries before. They believe in each other because it's essentially the same team as last year. And with Savage coming back, Bieber and Berríos coming eventually, probably May, June, this team could heat up the way it did last year and get real scary as things start to normalize. Last year it was July 1st, a grand slam from none other than George Springer that really sent them on a run. They need that moment so far this year, and they're just looking for where it's going to come from. It's not catastrophic yet, but hopefully we're not looking back at the end of the year going, what could have been. So, that's it for today's episode. It was a tough one to get through. Got you caught up on all the injury reports, all the potential call-ups and outside help in the organization. We got you an update on the things they need to clean up as a team. And yeah, so lots of names, lots of dates, lots of times. And yeah, we'll just keep watching and see what happens. And hopefully sooner than later, this team gets its act together. And real talk, if they don't figure this ship out and get it going in the right direction, this isn't going to be the team we saw at the end of last year. So, yeah, good news though. 149 games left to go. This is baseball. It's a long marathon, not a sprint. When you've got the building blocks in place, you just got to get them back healthy and firing on all cylinders again. So stick with us. There's a long way to go. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Please, guys, make sure you're subscribing to the channel. Let us know what you guys think in the comments. Use hashtag TrueNorthSportsTalk. Who do you want to see the Jays call up first? Is there someone outside the organization that we missed that you think they should either go get or that they could sign? I jokingly said to a friend the other day that Trevor Bauer's still out there. So yeah, what concerns you the most about this injury list that we gave? Let me know. So until next time, keep on enjoying them Jays, and we'll see you then.